Good morning. I'm Dagen McDowell in from Maria Bartiromo. It's Friday, August 31st. Yes, the weekend is here and you get an extra day off. But we're not done here on Fox Business. We've got you covered. Your top stories at 7 a.m. Eastern. The heat is on. President Trump reportedly ready to slap tariffs on an additional $200 billion in Chinese goods imported into the U.S. as early as next week. The president stressing the importance of these tariffs at a rally in Indiana last night.
We're reclaiming our nation's proud manufacturing heritage and putting tariffs on foreign producers who cheat our workers and cheat our companies. Not fair. Not fair.
President Trump also renewing his threat to pull the United States out of the World Trade Organization. What is going on with this fight with China, it was very apparent that China is the big issue that could weigh on these markets. You watched that drop yesterday. We've got losses across the board on the futures, a 38-point loss on the Dow futures right now. And if you watch those markets yesterday, as soon as that headline crossed that the tariffs on that additional $200 billion in Chinese goods could be coming next week, that wasn't new. It was well telegraphed, well forecast, but nevertheless, it drove stocks down, and we did have a triple-digit loss on the Dow yesterday, off by 137 points. But we should point out so far this month, the Dow is up significantly. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ, the big winner in the month of August, gaining nearly 5.5%. Moving on to Europe, as we wrap up the month of August, we have losses across the board. The CAC 40 in France down by more than 1%. And Asian markets mostly lower overnight. The Kospi, the only market there able to pick up some gains. Heading to court, Colin Kaepernick's collusion case against the NFL now going for a judge. We break that down. And race to go public, ride-sharing company Lyft taking the first steps toward an initial public offering. We'll see if Lyft can realize its plan to get listed ahead of Uber. And your eyes on retirement. We break down President Trump's plan to make it easier for you to save for those golden years. And check your debt. You won't believe the #1 reason why people don't pay off the credit card bill every month. Here to break it all down, Fox News contributor and National Review reporter Katherine Timpf, Third 7 Advisors Chief Market Strategist Mike Block, and Fox News contributor, radio talk show host. He has incredible presence on social media as well. Richard Fowler.
Thank you.
Great.
Follow me on Instagram. Average Day Fowler. Follow Kat. Follow everybody on Instagram.
You sound like an old school radio host.
I am a radio host.
I know, but old school. When you do your live videos on Instagram, you do that radio voice. It just comes on.
It's a learned skill.
Yes, gotta love it. Coming up this morning, everybody, former foreign policy advisor under President George W. Bush, Paul Bonicelli, is here. Ramsey Solutions financial expert Chris Hogan. You want to talk about a voice, Richard Fowler. Chris Hogan should be doing recording books, like audio books, for a living, which he might very well do. And the coming collapse of China author Gordon Chang. You don't want to miss it. To our top story this hour, a federal pay freeze. In a letter to lawmakers, President Trump says he is scrapping the automatic 2.1% pay increase for federal employees next year, declaring it as an emergency, an unsustainable budget increase. The letter reads in part, quote, "We must maintain efforts to put our nation on a fiscally sustainable course, and federal agency budgets cannot sustain such increases." Congress does hold the power to overrule this decision. Joining me now is the congressman from Kansas, Roger Marshall, a member of the House Small Business Committee. Congressman, good to see you. What do you make of this, and do you think that this is the right move by the president in terms of these federal civilian employee raises?
You know, absolutely. I think this president is doing what every businessman would do when he comes in and takes over a business that's distressed. You try to decrease your outflow of money, and right now we have more outflow than inflow. So until this economy catches up, and it's doing incredible, the GDP is growing, more jobs are being created, wages are growing, but it's going to take a little while for that influx of money into the federal government. So this is what every business person would do, is just, we're going to freeze wages, we're going to freeze hiring. So I think it's brilliant.
But let's talk about the money flowing out. That's because of Congress in large part. Let's talk about that gigantic omnibus spending bill that was passed by both the House and the Senate earlier this year. that we boosted federal spending by $300 billion in 2018 and 2019. And so blowing out the budget and taking these annual budget deficits back to $1 trillion annually, that's on the shoulders of Republicans. And so now you're going to, I'm playing devil's advocate, but now you're going to not give people a raise and act like it's not your problem and not your fault.
Well, certainly we will take ownership and responsibility. If there's any way we could have financed, given the military the raise that they needed without swallowing all the other social programs, we would have been happy to do that. But there is good news. I think we have about 9 buckets of money, 9 of the 12 taken care of by the Senate now. Last year, the House took care of all those buckets one at a time, but the Senate was unable to do it. So I do think we're going to look a little bit better this year. But you're absolutely right. We have to go on a diet in this country, and we have to figure out where we're going to stop spending so much money. You can look at health care. Right now, the federal government's spending 28% of their budget on health care. We have to figure out a way to start driving down the cost of health care. We have to figure out ways to get people from welfare to work. All those things are the first steps in addressing this financial crisis.
Congress, a couple questions for you. Richard Fowler here. Are you in favor of the farm bailout for $12 billion?
Oh, the mediation money, yeah, absolutely.
So
no one's been hurt more than anybody else for agriculture.
You're in favor of the farm bill bailout, which was created because of bad trade policy, but you're against raising the wages for COLA, which is just cost of living for air traffic controllers and meat inspectors and people that make sure that our food is safe.
Yeah, absolutely. So the federal government is responsible for this bad policy. Agriculture has borne the brunt of this spear right in the middle of their back. We have farmers that are going to go out of business because of this. The trade.
Who created the trade? The reason why there's a farm bailout is because of irresponsible tariffs, correct?
I think that's pretty simplistic, and you're looking at a little silo here. I think that if you would look at agriculture, all of our trade policy the past 20 years has been flawed. We think that there's some short-term pain for long-term gain here. I think you're looking pretty short-sighted. So the tariffs were the only way the president could get these other countries to come, and it's amazing. My farmers are the greatest patriots in the world. They are emboldened. They're dug in here with this president, but they needed some relief. They needed some monies to be able to plant next year's crops. We need some short-term help. So this problem certainly was created by 20 years, 30 years of flawed trade policy. This president's not going to keep kicking all these problems down the road. He's willing to address it. This NAFTA agreement is genius. What he has going on down there, what Lighthizer put together, as I look through this will be a gold template for the next 20 years. It's updated. It takes into account intellectual property issues. It's going to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States. So we're going in the right direction.
We're waiting for that Canada deal to get done, but Kat Timpf actually loves the idea of not giving people a raise.
I do. Being conservative is supposed to be about being fiscally conservative, so I absolutely love the idea of not doing the pay increases. I think it's great that we're finally doing something to save money. However, I also think a way to save money would be to not have to bail out farmers. The tariffs, I completely disagree with. I think it's very interesting that now tariffs and getting more involved in it has been a conservative position, which normally getting out of trade has been a conservative position. So it seems like it's kind of flipped a little bit to see all these conservatives going for tariffs when normally that'd be something that Democrats would support.
And Congressman, if we move ahead with this additional $200 billion in Chinese imports into this country, if we move ahead with this additional tariff on that amount of goods next week, I think it's safe to say that we could expect retaliation from China, retaliatory act. So my question is, what is the next industry that gets a bailout from the federal government because of this trade fight that we've gotten into? It's the farmers first, but there are going to be a lot more people lining up. As we've seen in history with bailouts and corporate welfare, the farmers were first. Who's next? And would you stand by that industry and giving them money from the government?
Look, I think we need to realize that our two major export countries that we export to are Canada and Mexico. We don't export half as much to China as we do those other two countries. Let's keep looking at the long-term picture. Let's get NAFTA finished up. If we can get NAFTA finished up and a farm bill done, that's going to give my farmers a great deal of certainty. There's some other things the president can do with helping agriculture. He can approve E15 year-round. So there are some other things that we can do besides just this short-term bailout. But certainly agriculture is always bears the brunt of all these trade agreements and all the tariffs. You need to realize too that the president's ultimate goal is zero tariffs. So we will get there, but there's going to be some short-term pain. There's no other way to get there. China refuses to negotiate in good faith. They steal $500 billion of intellectual property from us every year. This is the right direction. It is some short-term pain, but we're going to make it through it.
I want to move on to your op-ed. You wrote one for Fox News recently titled, Ocasio-Cortez's message should be welcomed by the GOP for these reasons. You lay out your approach to suppressing the rise of Democratic socialists. The midterms, 67 days away. Can the Republicans keep control of the House this fall?
You know, absolutely, and Ms. Ocasio-Cortez is definitely helping us. When she recently came to Kansas, and Kansas heard her socialistic policies of government-controlled health care, abolishing ICE, raising your taxes, our numbers are starting to go way up, just not in Kansas, but across the country. I think when people stop and listen how horrible these socialistic plans are, that they say, oh my gosh, she's threatening our safety and our security. She's going to take away my health care I get through my employer. She's going to end Medicare as we know it. She's going to take away choices and just basically destroy our country as we know it.
Congressman, I want to get Richard Fowler's reaction to this because we've actually talked about this. This is an issue for the party because you say that many, if not most, Democrats and those running for Congress or office in the fall, they are not on board with all of these ideas that you're talking about because, again, it's the abolish ICE, impeach the president, and Medicare for all.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is running for her district here in New York City, whereas then there's other members of Congress who are other candidates running who are focused on helping farmers, who are focused on how do we help small businesses. And you're seeing the polls show that. I mean, look at Texas. Right now, Ted Cruz is in a really, really tough re-election. He is only up by 1 point. In Florida, you have Andrew Gillum, who just won his primary.
But he is for impeachment. He's for Medicare for all.
Right, but if you look at, I mean, it's about.
So those ideas are gaining a lot of traction.
No, but it's about energy on the ground. If you look at the primary turnout numbers, Democratic primary turnout numbers are far outstretching Republican primary turnout in every state that it's happened.
Not in the Republicans, the turnout was greater. It was 1.6 million Republicans in Florida versus 1.5 million Democrats in Florida. The turnout, and in Arizona, the turnout was better. Congressman, final word.
Yeah, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez is helping our Republicans. She's motivating us to get out there. I know that my good friend Kevin Yoder's opponent and Steve Blackened's opponents in swing district are embracing these concepts of socialism, of government-controlled health care, of abolishing ICE. And if we don't win those swing states, you're going to end up with Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters in power positions, and they do want the socialistic program that we're just talked about.
Well, Congressman, I'm going to end on this. Medicare is single payer and it is government health insurance. And you know what? Everybody loves it who's on it. That's part of the problem. It's why you guys won't fix it. The fact that it's going broke in 8 years. Congressman, thank you so much. Roger Marshall, take care. Coming up, Colin Kaepernick versus the NFL. The former quarterback's case against the league now heading to trial. The latest developments. Plus, taking on Uber. We're breaking down Lyft's reported efforts to go public before its rival later this hour.
Hit the lights, let the music move you, lose yourself tonight, come alive, let the moment take you, lose yourself tonight, hit the lights.
An emotional outpouring for the late Senator John McCain at a service in Arizona yesterday, with memorials getting underway in our nation's capital this morning. Connell McShane is on Capitol Hill with the very latest. Good morning, Connell.
Hey, good morning to you, Dagen. Second emotional outpouring, to use your term, in as many days here in Washington today, Dagen, after about 3,500 people packed that church in Phoenix yesterday to pay their final respects to Senator John McCain. The speakers there included his former chief of staff, the football star Larry Fitzgerald, and then his old friend, the former Senator and Vice President Joe Biden. Biden got up in Phoenix yesterday and said, "My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democrat, and I love John McCain." Then he spoke about the time the two of them spent together here in Washington in the United States Senate.
It wasn't about politics with John. He could disagree on substance, but it was the underlying values that animated everything John did. Everything he was could come to a different conclusion. But where he part company with you, if you lack the basic values of decency, respect, knowing that this project is bigger than yourself.
The senator's remains transported by military plane here to the Washington area last night, and the motorcade was met at Joint Base Andrews by Defense Secretary James Mattis, among others. Later today, over here to the Capitol, and the senator will lie in State of the Capitol Rotunda, the 30th person to be so honored. The first was the former House Speaker in Kentucky, Senator Henry Clay, way back in 1852. We have a picture inside the rotunda we can show you. You'll see in the picture a wooden catafalque, as it's known. It's a platform that was built for the funeral of President Lincoln, and that's where the casket will be placed later today. The ceremony begins late morning, around 11 a.m. Eastern Time. The speakers will include the Senator Mitch McConnell, Speaker Paul Ryan, and also the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. Then early afternoon, Dagen, that's when the public will be allowed in. We're expecting thousands from all around the country to file into the Capitol Rotunda and pay their final respects to Senator McCain. Back to you.
Connell, I know that on a personal note that you really got a chance to get to know Senator McCain in the years that you spent on TV and radio. And so we feel like any of us who ever met him once feel very lucky that happened in our lives, because he was a very, very entertaining, saucy individual, I'll say.
Yeah, I think we all remember from those times that we spent together working on Imus in the morning, Dagen, that he was a regular guest for so many years, and the back and forth they would have was the fun they would have, and the sense of humor that the senator had, and that he could take a joke and also give a joke. But he was one of a kind, no doubt about it.
And I think this whole country grieves along right with his family. Some incredibly emotional services, with more to come. Connell McShane, thanks so much, Connell. We'll be right back. President Trump set to sign an executive order today aimed at boosting retirement savings so Americans have more time to keep their money in their 401k accounts. Who is excited about this? Chris Hogan, a financial expert with Ramsey Solutions, author of the upcoming book, Everyday Millionaires. Chris, tell us about it.
Well, Dagen, this is really a great opportunity for us to understand that we can have more time to leave money there. See, there are required mandatory distributions we have to take at age 70 and a half. So if this gets reviewed, it gives an opportunity for money to sit there longer, which means people wouldn't have to take it out. Now, we can't get too excited yet. This is just something that's proposed. But the bigger idea of this is an opportunity for smaller businesses to offer 401k plans to their employees. This is a big deal because not all businesses offer this. So it would give people another tool to be able to prepare for their future.
Mike Block?
So, just thinking through this, what's really driving, I'm kind of reading through some of the notes and some of the things you've said recently about, why people aren't saving. In your mind, what's really the sort of the gut reason why millennials maybe are not saving enough, and, what can change that mentality?
Well, I think the number one reason people aren't saving is a lack of understanding. A lot of people assume that retirement is about an age. They think that it's an older person thing, that they'll worry about it later. They're missing an opportunity to really set themselves up to prepare for the future. You and I know the sooner you get started saving, it allows your money to be able to grow. Time and compound interest are your money's number one best friends. So if we can get younger people started early and have them leave the money alone, and then have people that may feel behind really begin to understand that it's not too late to get started, that we have to do something, we can start to change the course of retirement in America.
Chris, a new study from NerdWallet shows the biggest reason people don't pay off their credit card debt is because I forgot. Do we need to curb this mentality?
It's scary. I mean, it's I forgot, or Dagen, here's the baseline thing, and I think it's the number one reason they don't have the cash. They don't have the money. You know, people are making life decisions in the midst of really debt-related delinquency and stress. I want people to know there's a better way. You have to begin to really understand that you can control your money. And it's a matter of looking at it as this thing that I have to manage. I have to be a money boss for myself and my family and my financial future. So get control of it, understand how much money is coming in, and if you have credit card debt, get it out of your life. Stop making the credit card companies rich. I want you to build your own wealth. So list out your debts from smallest to biggest, and I want you to attack the smallest one first while making minimum payments. And you can gain extra money by taking on a second job, or maybe even considering downgrading lifestyle. There are ways that we can take control because better is available if we choose it.
I'll leave it at that, Chris Hogan. Great to see you, sir. You have a great weekend.
Thank you, ma'am.
Come back in studio. We love having you here.
I'm going to come back.
You got to promote that book some more. When's it coming out, by the way?
Yes, it's going to come out in January 7th, but this is a pre-sale period, so people can get it for $20 by going to chrishogan360.com.
All right. Good plug, my friend. Good plug, Chris Hogan. Coming up, going to court over taking a knee. Colin Kaepernick's case against the NFL is now heading to trial. We have the details, plus calling all Metallica fans. We'll check out the new whiskey created by the band later this hour.
He walks away, the sun goes down, he takes the day, but I'm wrong, and in your way, in this blue shade, my tears are on their own.
Welcome back. I'm Dagen McDowell in for Maria Bartiromo. It's Friday, August 31st. Your top stories at 7:30 a.m. Eastern. Get ready. President Trump set to hit China with another round of tariffs next week. This on $200 billion worth of goods that we import from China. It's safe to say you can expect retaliation from China, as we've already seen with the $50 billion in goods that are tariffed by the U.S. and by China at the same time. The president throwing the blame for our current trade situation at the feet of Democrats.
They've made the worst trade deals in the history of the world. What we did to our companies and to our jobs, we should be ashamed of our leadership, but not this leadership, because we're bringing them back.
Trade tensions did hit futures yesterday with a triple-digit loss on the Dow. Futures are lower this morning, 51-point loss on the Dow futures. So this kind of tells you that the elephant in the room, the big worry, is China, our largest trading partner. But we should point out that all three major market gauges are on track to finish the month deep into the green, not red, green. The Dow is up more than 2% so far in August as we wrap up this month of trading. The S&P gaining 3%. The NASDAQ up almost 5.5%. To wrap up the month of August, we have losses across the board in England. You can take a look at the Dow chart. Let's say we're on TV, we're watching the Dow chart yesterday. See that big dip to the downside? That's when the headline crossed that President Trump was ready to slap tariffs on that additional $200 billion in Chinese goods. That tells you what is the real worry in the market. Again, investor worries soothed New records hit earlier in the week on the S&P, NASDAQ, and Russell 2000 as we got these trade deals with Mexico, worked toward one with Canada, bringing back together NAFTA with a new deal. But again, China, your major worry yesterday. And then let's check out the European markets are down across the board, and it was the same story in Asia overnight. The only gainer there, the Kospi in South Korea. Back here at home, heading to court. Colin Kaepernick's collusion case against the NFL now going before a judge. And Ride to Market, Lyft, is taking its first steps toward an initial public offering. We'll see if the ride-sharing company can realize its plan and get listed ahead of Uber. Nothing else matters. Superstars Metallica releasing their own brand of whiskey. We'll tell you when you will be able to throw some back. And we're getting cheesy. We bring you the story of a cheese made for just kids, cow candy. It's candy, but it's cheese. We will explore this. We're up in a few minutes. And also talk to the business owner if the tariff problem, the trade war is hurting her business. So a new beef for the Democratic Party. Some folks are up in arms over burger chain In-N-Out. It's got a cult following. People are fanatical about their In-N-Out. But the burger chain donated $25,000 to the state Republican Party in California. The California Democratic Party chairman Eric Bauman said this on Twitter to start up a firestorm and a protest. To In-N-Out, tens of thousands of dollars donated to the California Republican Party. It's time to hashtag boycott In-N-Out. Let Trump and his cronies support these creeps, perhaps animal style. The burger chain quickly put out a statement noting it made equal contributions to both Republican and Democratic groups. Kat Timpf.
First of all, perhaps animal style. What does it even mean? I hate when people who aren't funny try to make jokes. Second of all, let's just so overdoing it. I'm a libertarian, which means I don't have a particular major party that I agree with on everything. If I boycotted everything that was run by someone I didn't agree with, I would just not eat. I would never be able to eat. I probably couldn't shower using soap or shampoo. I think that we all need to just calm down, eat your cheeseburger, eat your fries, and chill out.
Animal style.
Animal style.
Richard,
Animal style.
This is a Democrat out in California, but I always say, if you're going to start a boycott over something, I call this asymmetric outrage, that the outrage is not symmetrical with what's going on at the company, that it's manufactured anger. It's like, oh my God, In-N-Out's doing this. Don't pick on a company that everybody loves, and people love In-N-Out.
I do too. I mean, my favorite In-N-Out's the one by the LAX airport because it's like you can get in and go to the airport. I think this is silly, and I'll tell you why for a couple reasons. One, I think Kat's right. Like,
it's a cheeseburger.
It's a cheeseburger.
If you're getting mad about cheeseburgers, then you've really lived a charmed life. No real problem.
And I think we're missing the larger problem here is that there's far too much money in our politics because all these corporations hedge their bets by giving to both parties, so whoever's in control doesn't do anything to hurt them.
Here's the problem I have. Yeah, everyone loves In-N-Out. And they're saying, no, we give money to the GOP and the Democratic Party. Look what good people we are. Great. And look, maybe this is not the whole story here, but when I hear these companies giving money to these political parties, I get it. I understand why they do that. I just wish they didn't. Why? Because I wish they were giving the money to help people in need. This is a restaurant company. How about giving something to help the nutrition of underprivileged people? Support community food programs.
But In-N-Out is a huge community presence, and I'll point something else. Entry-level employees at In-N-Out start at $13 an hour. That is above California's minimum wage right now, which is $11 an hour. So In-N-Out is notoriously people like working there, and people even more love eating there. I just think that this is absolutely silly, and to try to connect that chain to President Trump, again, is just beyond reason.
Yeah, I think it's beyond reason. I think
backfire.
Both sides of the aisle do it with different companies. Everybody's having a boycott here, a boycott there. Everybody gets a boycott. But it really doesn't deal with the root issue. And I think Americans aren't really paying attention. The boycotts used to be something in the 90s. Now, because we're boycotting everybody, nobody's paying attention to good boycotts.
Yeah, they donated to the Republic $25,000 too.
That's pennies.
That's pennies.
That's not even a commercial.
When it comes to how much money that the company makes, weeks, that's really nothing.
And they've given money to Democratic Democrats as well.
Well, companies hedge their bets. I think they hedge their bets. They give to both parties in order to say, no matter what happens, we'll be good. We have a, and I think it's part of a larger problem, right? Because voters don't get the same access to the people that we elect with these corporations because they give to both sides, get these meetings, they get to lobby both sides, and this is part of the problem.
And that's another bigger issue, which again, Senator McCain, may he rest in peace.
Yes.
He was a big proponent of fixing that, but. I'm here saying, yes, give back to the community. I know it's a great company to work for. People love it. I'd love to see more of that, though.
It's fitting that everything leads back to John McCain on this day. Yeah.
It just reminds us that we can get along and that we can, he was a huge proponent of defense spending, but then he made sure that money was spent properly. There was a contract with Boeing, and it was a very favorable contract that the government signed with Boeing, and he cracked down on that. There was an individual who I think was sentenced to some prison time for that.
And I think it speaks to who he is because he's touched so many pieces of legislation. We're talking about In-N-Out Burger, and in comes John McCain because of his legacy in the United States Senate on dealing with some of these issues that affect everyday life.
Yeah, how do you go from like a burger chain that's beloved donating money to the state Republican Party and linking it to quote Trump and his cronies? This is where we are in this day and age.
A little bit of love.
Trump is actually not the governor of California. I don't know if anybody knew that, but he's the president. So.
No, but the guy running for the governor of California on the Democratic side wants to offer health care for even illegal immigrants in this country. Remember?
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom, that was earlier this week. I opened up a can of worms. I'm going to put the lid back on it.
Quickly, Dagen, quickly.
Yes, exactly.
Tighten that
I did, because Richard wanted to say something. In case you missed it, here are some of this week's top moments from the show.
The president, as he's indicated, is fully prepared to go ahead with or without Canada. We hope that Canada will come in, but if not, they will then have to be treated as a real outsider.
Lots of people thought he couldn't get a deal with Mexico. He clearly is going to have a deal with Mexico. At the same time, the Canadians, I think, sort of thought they could sit it out for a while, and now they're having to play catch-up. And the United States is so key to the Canadian economy that they have to get to an agreement.
The Friday deadline is a real thing because we have to send the Mexico deal up to Congress and so on, and we hope that Canada will be part of that.
White House is going to move to regulate these tech companies because of some of its obvious bias. This is in dispute. That would hurt business. What do you say, Ari?
Well, look, I don't mind politicians who occasionally throw high inside heat. Sometimes you need to do a little bit of that to make your people who oppose you in politics back off a little bit, give you more fair coverage. But once it crosses the line into the government trying to regulate speech or regulate private sector's right to publish things, that's where I draw a line.
I think regardless, there is going to be more regulation and oversight of the government coming into this because, unfortunately, Silicon Valley has had free reign and they haven't been able to hold themselves accountable.
I think there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, and there are problems with these platforms.
This is the President of the United States saying, I don't like the searches that come up for me.
Right.
And I'm going to regulate you because I don't like the way you're treating me. That's a whole other issue.
From the catwalk to the boardroom, Kathy Ireland transformed from supermodel into a billion-dollar business sensation.
The economy it's clearly doing well. It's growing. We're seeing growth in retail sectors.
Tasty beverages, no longer just for quenching your thirst.
Billions are being made from these drinks, and we need to understand that a lot of this is marketing, if not all of it is marketing, especially when it comes to some of these false promises that I see on these labels, talking about increasing fertility, cleansing your skin, improving your sleep. It's not real.
I've had this before. It's aloe vera, and I'm just letting folks know that it's chunky. Professional Fighters League in its inaugural season. How has this season been so far?
It's been spectacular. Not only some very cool venues like the Chicago Theater, Madison Square Garden. Now we're up at Oceans Resort in Atlantic City and down in D.C. It's been a lot of fun, but the fighters have really stepped up their game.
At Paris Fashion Week, the company debuted this heavily layered jacket. If this is for you, it's $9,000.
It's like they're playing a joke on women. They're trying to see how foolish people will be with their money.
Listen, Steve Bannon was wearing that outfit for a year and no one said he had like 4 layers.
Are you riding? Say you never ever leave from beside me.
Jack Brewer, you have a major social media presence. Have you done one of those videos?
Yes, I have. But guess what? I did it with the police department.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
You know, wonder whether this is Trump country or not. I don't know. Maybe a picture tells 1,000 words here. Although I'll tell you, it's interesting. You look like somebody I might know.
Yeah, I'm going to be in town a little bit later, down to the Ford Center.
Colin Kaepernick's case against the NFL is now heading to trial. Cheryl Casone has more on this story. Hey, Cheryl.
Kaepernick won, NFL 0 at this point, Dagen. An arbitrator has determined that there is enough evidence in Kaepernick's grievance to send the case to trial. Kaepernick is alleging that the NFL owners colluded to keep him out of the league. He hasn't played since the 2016 season when he began to kneel on the field during the national anthem. The NFL's request to dismiss this grievance was denied. A trial date is expected to be set by the end of this year. Well, Lyft has reportedly hired an advisor for an initial public offering in March or April. They're expected to begin taking pitches from banks as early as next month. Lyft raised $600 million in its most recent funding round, doubling its valuation to about $15 billion. Rival Uber is also planning to go public next year as well. And then there's this, the marriage of heavy metal and hard alcohol. Metallica launching its own whiskey. It's called Blackened. It's named after a song on their '88 album, And Justice for All. The band says the whiskey's flavor is enhanced by, get this, sound waves that are blasted into it from, well, the song Blackened. The whiskey is going to be available in New York, Florida, California, and Wisconsin. It starts this fall. The retail price, suggested anyway, $43. Sound waves into whiskey production. I'm trying to think, I don't know. Back to you. I don't know. I'm not sure I understand that, but okay. That's what they say.
Well, Sammy Hagar got there first in terms of the liquor business. He's had that Cabo Wabo tequila, for years and years and years.
Just don't mess with my whiskey. Like, I am a whiskey connoisseur and a bourbon connoisseur, so I don't know if the sound waves are going to make it taste better.
What bourbon do you drink?
I like a High West double rye.
I prefer rye. Yeah. I like Bullet Rye. That's my jam.
Whistle Pig's excellent rye.
Thank you for that. By the way, just really quickly, In-N-Out Burger has a foundation. It supports and assists children who have been victims of child abuse. Mike Block, 100% of the money raised since 1984 has been given back to the communities. In-N-Out Burger actually underwrites all of the administrative costs of its foundation.
I am thrilled to hear that, and I'm an even bigger In-N-Out fan than I was before.
So
Animal style.
Yeah,
all right.
Don't pick on In-N-Out.
It's beautiful.
Don't pick on things. Don't start boycotts of things that people actually love because they'll turn against you. It's called overplaying your hand.
Just don't boycott whiskey. That's all I got to say.
I'm surprised Metallica, Metallica did a great cover of Whiskey in the Jar. I'm surprised at the packaging. They should do like a jar-type bottle.
Yeah, I'm going to get into the tequila business.
I will admit, I have some homemade spirits in mason jars in my home.
Wonderful.
Whoa.
I'm coming over.
Dagen, you got to bring them in.
Yes, but
we'll
you kind of lose your vision really quickly.
I'll come over then.
Okay. Say cheese, everybody. We're going to talk with a Wisconsin mom who's revamping traditional string cheese into some wacky flavors like fruit punch and orange. That's next. From the candy aisle to the dairy case, one company now combining real Wisconsin cheese with all natural fruity flavors to create kid-friendly cheese that tastes like, sort of, candy. It's aptly named Cow Candy, and it's quickly winning over the hearts of, and minds, maybe, of parents and children alike. Joining us now, the founder of Cow Candy, Danyel O'Connor. Danyel, why create a cheese like this, and how fast are you growing at this point?
Well, we're trying to have smart growth right now because we are a small company, so we don't want to outpace our abilities. But the reason we developed this product was I saw in the cheese industry a lack of something that was really exciting and delighting children. And as a mom, I wanted to create something that had protein and calcium, but also had the whimsy of the candy aisle and took my children and the kids in my life away from over-processed, over-sugared snacks.
And we've been tasting it on set here. I know Richard Fowler it really likes the strawberry
I like the
flavor.
strawberry one, too.
And Kat does too. But talk about, as you grow this business, you have felt an impact from the tariffs, kind of the trade fight that we've gotten into with some other nations. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we most definitely have. I mean, first off, before the trade wars even started, we had an issue. We couldn't sell to Canada because of the tariffs that were on our product. And we actually were just getting our first POs from China, and they were retracted because of the concerns with the tariffs happening now.
Well, if you send a message to Washington, because again, today is kind of the deadline that we have with coming together with Canada on a new deal, and the dairy issue is a stumbling block. We want freer markets. We want a more open market into Canada. What would you say to Washington on that note?
I mean, we are cautiously optimistic that they have our best interest at heart, and we're hoping to have a global economy where we can be a snack that is an everyday win for moms around the world.
How fast is your business growing here in the United States right now?
It's growing quite quickly. We've been fortunate enough to partner with retailers like Ahold and Meijer. So we're very happy with our growth here. And of course, education is the hardest part, right? Sharing with people what we do and why we do it.
Indeed, Danyel, and you did that today. Thank you for coming on, Danyel O'Connor. And here we
Thank you for
go.
having me.
Bee's cheese. Delicious. Thank you so much. Still ahead, tweeting up a storm. Tesla CEO Elon Musk making new headlines on social media. His latest war of words. Next. Mornings with Maria.